from Written in Ash. I'm working on another one of my stories that I wrote myself, or I'm writing myself. I just started working on it today, yeah, so I'm doing that right now. But until then, I'm still going to be reading short, scary stories. This one is going to be from 13 Ghosts, Strange But True Stories by Will Osborne. The Ghost Who Carried a Coffin. Lord Dufferin couldn't sleep. It wasn't the fact that he was away from home. His work as a British diplomat had taken him all over the world, and he was used to sleeping in strange beds. In fact, he felt quite comfortable in the huge castle-like home of his Irish friend. But for some reason, even though it was very late and he was very tired, sleep would not come. Finally, he got out of bed, slipped on his robe, and walked over to the window. The night was clear, and the dew-covered lawns on the estate shimmered under the light of the full moon. It was a beautiful sight, and Lord Dufferin began to relax as he stood gazing into the peaceful night. He was almost ready to go back to bed when he saw the strange little man stagger out of the shadows near the hedge. Lord Dufferin watched as the shadowy figure trudged into the moonlight and began struggling across the lawn. The man was staring intently at the ground, and on his back was a big black box. The box was obviously very heavy. The little man could do to carry it without falling over. Lord Dufferin wondered what could be inside the box. The man was clearly headed toward the house, which illuminated his sharp pointed nose and his sunken cheeks and his rotten yellow teeth. Away from the house, he struggled back across the lawn toward the hedge and disappeared again into the shadows. Lord Dufferin stood frozen, staring out at the silent lawn. Now he knew what the little man had been carrying on his back. The moonlight had lit it clearly as he walked away from the window. Lord Dufferin's heart began to pound. The box was a coffin. Well, old fellow, that's quite a story, but I can assure you there are no ghosts here. Lord Dufferin's host poured himself another cup of tea. And no little man delivering coffins in the middle of the night either. Perhaps you fell asleep, dreamed you couldn't fall asleep, then dreamed you fell asleep after all. The other guests at the breakfast table laughed. Perhaps Lord Dufferin is trying to scare us all away so he can have your estate to himself for a while, said one. For I am sure he is the last person here to believe in ghosts. Lord Dufferin smiled and shook his head. It was true, he didn't believe in ghosts. Still, he knew what he had seen, and he knew he hadn't been dreaming. Maybe someday he would understand what it meant. I'm sorry, sir. The Paris elevators are a bit slow. The hotel manager looked anxiously around the lobby. And we're terribly crowded this morning because of your diplomatic conference. I'm sure it will be here soon. Lord Dufferin nodded and looked at his watch. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock sharp on the 5th floor. It was already 10:05, and the lobby was still crowded with people waiting to get upstairs. Lord Dufferin hated being late, but there was nothing he could do. Give me the notes for my speech, he said to his secretary. We might as well go over them while we wait. Lord Dufferin's secretary fumbled in his briefcase for the notes, and the two men began discussing the points the ambassador intended to make to his address to the other diplomats. They were deep in conversation when the elevator finally arrived and opened its doors. Sir? The hotel manager tapped Lord Dufferin on the shoulder. Better hurry, sir. You don't want to be left behind. Lord Dufferin looked up from his notes to see that the elevator had already filled with people and the operator was about to close the doors. Oh, yes, said Lord Dufferin, shuffling his papers. Coming. Sorry. Lord Dufferin hurried toward the crowded elevator, mumbling his apologies to the other passengers. He turned to the uniformed operator and was about to thank him for waiting when suddenly he stopped. Lord Dufferin stepped back. A sharp chill ran through his body. He turned ghostly pale, and his pulse began to race. Unable to speak, he grabbed his secretary's arm and gestured frantically for the elevator to go without them. The doors closed, and Lord Dufferin took a deep breath. He turned to the hotel manager. Who was that man? He said, his voice shaking. The man in the uniform operating the elevator? The hotel manager shook his head, puzzled by Lord Dufferin's strange behavior. Why, I don't really know, sir. Our regular man is out today. We hired that gentleman as a temporary replacement. Why do you ask? Do you know him? Before he could speak, a terrible clang came from the direction of the elevator. The manager rushed toward the closed doors as a series of loud bangs echoed through the lobby. There was an ear-piercing screech of metal, scraping metal, then finally a crash that shook the whole hotel. No one in the lobby spoke a word as the noise of the crash died away. There was only one explanation for what had happened, and everyone knew what it was. The elevator steel cable had snapped, and the operator and all his passengers lay dead at the bottom of the shaft. Lord Dufferin looked up at the floor indicator above the elevator doors. The arrow was frozen a little to the left of the number 5. The cable must have broken just before the elevator reached the 5th floor, the floor where his meeting was to take place. Had he gotten on the elevator, Lord Dufferin would never have attended that meeting, or any meeting, ever again. But Lord Dufferin didn't get on. For one reason, when he saw the elevator's operator's face, he recognized it as the face he had seen from his window the night that he couldn't sleep. The face of the deathly little man with the heavy black box, the ghost who carried a coffin. The end. Oh, I forgot these stories have little things at the end of them about ghosts. I haven't read from this book in a long time. It is. Many people have premonitions of danger, but few are dramatic as the events in this case. Facts were reported in the local papers, and British Society for Physical Research reported the case, but Lord Dufferin was never able to discover the elevator operator's name or anything else about him. His grandson stated that Lord Dufferin, though he never believed in ghosts, always insisted that the story was perfectly true.
Don't be scared. Like, subscribe, share.